جلستنا اليوم تهم الكثير، مو بس جمهور الأفلام. يعني في أحد منكم فكر قبل لا يبدأ فيلمه وش ممكن يحتاج، أو وش خيارات التمويل اللي يحتاجها الفيلمه، أو كيف يضمن نجاح التسويق له بعد الانتهاء؟ رحبوا معي بضيوفنا اللي بيشاركونا هالأجوبة وأكثر: لانس أوكونور، دينس ديمبيا، وشريف إسكندر، ويحاورهم ناتان بوغن.
أوقات ممتعة إن شاء الله.
Here. We're waiting for Sheriff? It's down here. Okay, no Sheriff. Guys, it is a pleasure to be here. Thank you for coming to our panel. We're very excited to be here. New opportunities in film financing and streaming platforms. So obviously a very exciting time for the region. Complete explosion in terms of cinema and ecosystem as a whole. And our panelists come from two different sides of the industry. So we're going to have two different perspectives: from the PR side with Dennis here, and the production side with Lance. So with that, guys, do you want to just dive in a bit and give a brief intro as to what you guys do and your perspective on the lay of the land here?
Sure. I'll start. It's wonderful to be here, I will say. I am the president of Rogers & Cowan PMK, a very large and prominent PR firm in the US. A lot of people know us for all the talent we represent and all the great actors, actresses, athletes, musicians. I oversee our global corporate entertainment group and represent studios, distributors, financiers, investors, producers, and production companies. And that gives me unique visibility into the entire ecosystem that we're in: buying, selling, what works, what doesn't work, when deals are closed, when movies are released, when casts are announced. That's our doing. You're reading about it because we're doing that on behalf of our clients worldwide.
Very nice. Lance?
Hello. Great to be here in Riyadh. I own a production company called Minted in California. We have many verticals, from commercials to film to television to making apps to advertising. Technology has made it change that you no longer have to be focused on one vertical. So just like their company, they're involved in many, many different verticals. And we do features, we do commercials, we do documentaries, we do whatever we fancy and what we believe is going to be breaking through the white noise of distribution, which we'll talk about later.
So Sheriff, you're from this part of the world.
Yes,
if you want
I'm from the region,
Yes.
and we hold the flag here. So we sponsor, produce, and restore and maintain the region's content. So we have the largest library of Arabic movies. We have the largest library of Arabic music. We have a pretty large footprint when it comes to TV channels. And we're fully focused on just Arabic content and, in particular, entertainment content.
Amazing.
So that's the regional perspective. So it's very good to be here, see what happens on the other side of the world. You guys look at it internationally. We look at it locally and hold the flag here.
So new opportunities. Let's dive in a bit on the production side and the financing side. Lance, I know you're working on a film and a TV show, amongst other things.
Yeah.
What are the new opportunities, the new ways that you're seeing for people here on all sides, content creators, producers, anyone involved in the business? What are the new opportunities that you are seeing that you can relate to our guests here?
Great. So technology has changed everything and made everything simpler. You can make a film with an iPhone. You can make a film in many different countries. You can even make them without even going to the country, because you can make them on stages with VR, AR, anything you want. So the whole ability of making films around the world and making ideas become possible has become so much easier just because technology has made it so. And it's made it actually so as well with distribution as well, such as, meaning we have a contract with Apple. So you can take a film at the end of the day, you can make that film, and from a laptop, you can go into a company called iConnect, and I can distribute a film from my office in 137 countries at the touch of a button. And they start making money and giving you, you know, statistics of who's watching it, where they're watching it, male, female, whatever it may be. All the dashboard of information comes down, and you get paid every 30 days. So technology has been the greatest thing for us to make a change in what we pick, where we shoot it, and more importantly, who's going to be in it. Because a lot of that comes down to availability. A lot of that comes down to scheduling, obviously. A lot of that comes down to budgets. So all the technology is able to give you more reasons to make it better, make it bigger, make it whatever it needs to be, just based on the usage of technology. So we've embraced that. And yeah, we've got one television series, which is we're going to shoot it in Ireland. And we're doing that distribution-wise old school. And we've got old school, meaning we're going to actually go out and sell it territory by territory by territory, because we don't want to sell it to a streamer, which is a one-stop shop. You get one price and they get everything.
That's a model that still works well today. I just want to say that. A lot of people think...
He loves it.
Well, the concept
We all
of
do. We all do.
Well, there was, you know, over the last couple of years, I think people forgot that that was an option, that you could have a film and you didn't have to give away the world to a distributor. You can find it. You can get a lot of money getting your film financed through pre-sales in a lot of international territories. So it's definitely still a very viable option.
Yeah.
For the right types of films.
Yeah.
And then, and I'm quite right. We love the streamers. They changed the whole business. And the two of us were just talking at lunchtime, and we were trying to say, what were we going to say to you guys about distribution, marketing, and production, or what we were going to do? And the two of us came up and we basically said, we are in, well, you said, we're in the Wild West. Yeah. We're in a part of history where everything, there's no rules anymore. There's absolutely no rules, which makes creative better.
And therein lies the opportunity that this group has, and that's the opportunity to be very disruptive. You need not look any further than the Academy Awards this year. You see a film like Everything Everywhere All at Once. You see films like RRR. You see films like Triangle of Sadness, Banshees, all very different. They didn't follow a model. They didn't follow a playbook. For so long, that was our industry. You had a playbook, you had to follow it. That no longer exists anymore. Creatively, from a business affairs perspective, you can create your own rules in a lot of sense, and that's not hyperbole. So I think the opportunity to be disruptive is something everybody should be taking advantage of, but also being mindful of your distribution options when you do get your film made. We're talking about the pros and cons of having a film and having offers from a streamer versus a traditional distributor. What does that mean to have your film go to streaming versus theatrical? It can mean a lot. You could be, in one scenario, you can be just a piece of content that goes up on a platform and you're one of 30,000 titles that gets very little marketing and promotion and publicity, or you could go a theatrical route and get a lot of tender loving care from a group that maybe wants to vie for awards or really make this movie pop in the zeitgeist. The economics of both of those scenarios is an entirely different subject that would take 2 days to cover.
Yeah, but you know, I think what's happening now is that we're starting to select what works best. So in some types of content, it works best to go straight to a streamer. But you're talking about movies and film, which are very dear to our heart because that's our core business. The traditional windowing of going to theatrical, and then from theatrical, you start choosing a premium pay window, and then generic pay windows, and then free-to-air TV. That still works best. Now, from our perspective, things are moving in our advantage. You know, this region can now capitalize on technology. You mentioned technology, making it cheaper to produce. You mentioned technology making it easier to distribute. that was actually our biggest hurdle. So today you were able to create content in, sort of Western standards, by Western standards, a lot cheaper than it would have cost us 10, 20, 30 years ago. But it also means that we now have an opportunity of getting our content worldwide. While as previously, the fact that you would want to release an Arabic movie or a movie made in Saudi or a movie made in Egypt or in Lebanon, you wanted to get that distributed globally. That would be a monumental effort that the industry wasn't set up for here. But today, this is a lot easier. So whereas this region was at a disadvantage previously, and we could only get Western content flowing here, I think now is the time for content from here to start flowing outwards. And we've seen successes from other regions, like South Korea now is going gangbusters with things like Squid Games and stuff like that. So I think this is an opportunity for the region, and I think, we'd be fools not to capitalize on it.
And because technology has enabled the region to be able to do that, on the financing side for local content creators, what is the advice, the perspective that you would give them in order to get their content made?
So, there are many entities that would fund a good product. Some would fund it by a pre-acquisition, some would fund it by a debt loan, and we have seen initiatives in the region for subsidized debt loans. So, there are initiatives from ministries of culture, especially here in Saudi, that are willing to come up with a subsidized type of debt loan for the financing. But it's a very tight balance, because when you have easy funding, the pressure for success is not as great. So it has to make economic sense. It has to be a product that will sell, that will make money, that will be successful. Because if not, this is, really money that's wasted. I'm not talking that or saying that all products have to be blockbusters, but in overall, it has to make economic sense for this industry to further develop in the region and not become relegated to, some sort of subsidy program for a group of people that are talented in a specific area.
So it's all about the story. And we were talking about it earlier today about, good story, no matter where it comes from, travels today. And the audiences, no matter where they are, want to watch it. And there's a trove of incredible IP from Saudi specifically and from the region at a whole. Do you guys want to touch upon the incredible IP that's available?
But I don't think it's really about IP. I think IP is a really sexy word right now.
Yeah.
If I hear it another time, it's another way to say no. The important thing is, and it's great to hear what you're doing here in Saudi, but we're doing it differently now because it's cultural. Cultures are now dictating the way we go. Kids don't want to watch a 2-3 hour movie. Kids want to watch 6 to 10 TV 1 hour episodes.
Yes.
And they want to binge watch it. They don't want to watch it with their parents. And they don't want. This is a cultural change. And whenever you said Prime were wanting to make a movie, if I told you 6 of the main writers that I work with in Hollywood aren't making movies, they're making TV. Because if it goes on to Apple, at a touch of a button, 1.8 billion people can watch it. Mm-hmm. Whenever you're making a movie, you're making 50,000. There's a big difference. So culturally, we have to think differently about who's the audience. Who are you wanting at the end of the day to watch? And this is what the world is coming with press and PR and how we're doing it, because it's all got to do with Instagram, and it's got to do with Facebook, and
understand that audience appetites will change very quickly now, and that's and when you talk about following trends, yes, the entertainment business is a copycat business, but a trend is something that wasn't hot yesterday, it is today, and may or may not be tomorrow. And when you think about the timeline to the filmmakers out there, when you think about making a film, from the onset to actual release, you're looking at 1.5 or 2 years.
18 months.
And that's a long time for a trend to sustain itself in 2023. So some things you got to differentiate between a trend and a truism. Like a trend, in the U.S. it was disaster movies in the '90s. Armageddon and Volcano and all that. It was spoof movies, found footage stuff. The truisms are the movies, the action movies with the big stars doing what they do, saving the day.
Which is making theater even better.
Correct.
Because what we're doing is we're making bigger budget, bigger things for theatrical. There has to be a reason. And again, this is cultural. It has to be a reason globally. This is not regional.
Yes.
But to go to a movies today in the States for 2 people is $100. By the time you do parking, you do your thing, you do this stuff. And a family of 5 ain't going to do it whenever they can go to Netflix for $14. So that's a cultural change. And that's that people are not going to theater for that. But if you're going to go to a theater, you want to see Top Gun. You want to see that movie you just showed me, the Saudi movie trailer.
Yeah.
That's what you want to go and see. You want to see Avatar. So the theaters are becoming more luxurious. They're selling coffee outside. They've got sushi instead of popcorn. It's a cultural thing.
We even have dinner service in movies now.
Amazing, amazing.
This is what you get in the region here. You get movie theaters that have dinner service.
We're not there yet. But so it's a cultural thing. So that's what I'm really trying to talk about. The movies are getting better. They're getting bigger. They're getting more wonderful, more spectacular, more whatever, to draw people to come into the theater seats. And that's a cultural thing. The kids, so we write now in a different way to whatever that audience is going to be.
The productions are getting bigger and bigger and more evolved. What's the film that you showed us?
Yes, I was showing you a trailer for a movie that is yet unreleased or unannounced in the region, but it is going to be a mega release.
A mega release.
And you're now talking, new techniques, mega budgets, mega stars to create the appeal that you're mentioning for the theatrical. Yeah. Because in many cases, the theater experience itself is what will drive people. You cannot beat the sound experience in a movie theater or the visuals in a movie theater. And that's where it lends itself very nicely to specific genres, like you mentioned, action, thrillers, high-paced visuals, even sci-fi done right. But when you start looking at other genres like comedy, like social drama, that becomes less dependent on the visual experience and the audio experience in a movie theater. So we're seeing that segregation happen, and it is happening in the region. And this region is now going through significant change in consumption patterns. You mentioned the cultural change. We're even seeing a bigger change here in the region because of the very young population we have. The median age in the Middle East is somewhere in the region of 21, 22 years, while we're talking in Europe, it's ahead of 40, north of 40 years as median age. So these are people that are more focused on the personal screen. You mentioned going out with the family to movies. This is not the norm anymore with the younger generation. They'll go out with friends, they'll go out in pairs, it's not going to be a family outing where you have, 2 generations watching the same movie. The personal screen has become the main mode of engagement. You'll find kids at home who are sitting in the family room with their parents. The parents are watching something on the big screen in the living room, but the kids have something else on their phone and on their tablet. So that shift is happening as well, and I think we are now seeing the amount of content that is created for this. I was giving you an example of Ramadan. Last Ramadan, I think we had 70 TV series released. So 70 TV series released, every single day, that means 70 episodes. So even if we're talking about 30 minutes per episode, that's 35 hours of new content every single day. That's 1,000 hours of content. How do you think people were watching it? The older generation would be watching something, the kids would be watching something else, and it will all be happening at the same time. So yes, there is a bulk in Ramadan, and it does present its challenges, but it's also the most lucrative season, and that's why people push for content to be released in Ramadan.
There's another very important part that you can actually jump onto as well. The marketing and the advertising now, because of social networking and because of cultural, has become very, very narrow. So where we used to market and distribute projects, you know, over a period of 3-4 months, they're now over 2 weeks. Well, once you talk, and it's incredible because it's moving so fast. And
it's also gotten more expensive because there's more clutter to cut through.
Yeah.
So the ad buys have increased in your spending. For a wide theatrical release in the U.S., I mean, it's not uncommon for a studio to spend 100 to 150 million just to market and promote it.
From a PR perspective, I think it's really interesting here because we are seeing a lot more content. We talked about technology, amongst other things, as enabling that content to be distributed all over the world. From a PR point of view, new opportunities, what opportunities do you see here? Not in terms of distribution, that's one thing, but really in terms of how to be put on the map, how corporate and individuals here.
Yeah, I think it all starts with the content. I mean, there's so much content out there. The content has to be high quality, and it has to differentiate itself from so much that's out there. I see what's going on in South Korea. I represent the company that made Parasite and a lot of other, Korean films and TV series that have done well. And the reason why that's connecting is because it's made very, very well. It's very, very, very different. But the themes are very universal. Class systems, class battles.
Yes.
Those, so if you have a theme, pay attention to your themes, I guess is what we're saying, because if it's a universal theme, people will catch on, and there's a chance it can travel very, very well.
Well, for this place, for Saudi, the world outside it doesn't know a lot about it.
No.
And they don't know what it looks like.
Correct.
I mean, I went into this financial district, I couldn't believe it. I knew some of the architects. It was like mind-blowing. I'd never thought I'd be in them, and they were here. So I think that's a real plus, because that gets through the noise. Whenever it comes to the storytelling, I mean, we all have history, and your history has never been told globally. Well, now it can be told globally so easily. And I think the important thing is how you tell it, and how you exploit your culture, what's the message that you want to get out? How do you want it to be told? And if you want it to be global, what do you stay away from? Like the #1 watched shows are family shows.
Yes.
They're not family shows of people going around the table and doing it. They make the numbers are off the charts. That's the big boy. So to think about this place, it's just to think you've got treasure in the culture, you've got treasure in the landscape, you've got treasure in hopefully the filmmakers that are going to be able to write about it.
The talent, yeah.
And it's about exploring that talent and bringing them to bear and making them be enabled to do that in a way that everybody's happy.
But that you mentioned everyone's happy. That's the very tight balance, because in many cases, when you take the historical perspective, when you look at the history, when you look at the cultural themes, the local cultural themes, those might not travel very well. You have to make it universal. It has to be something that appeals.
That's my point.
Yes.
My point is, we call that freedom of, creative freedom.
Yeah.
And writers are real quick at coming up with that.
Yeah.
You have to think about telling a story, a family story, and using cultural. You don't need a historian saying that's right or that's wrong.
Yeah.
You need to just take it as a backdrop. And if they get at least 5-10% of, hey, did you see that movie was made in Saudi Arabia? They go, you've done well.
Exactly.
5% is a real good number, but you need them to watch the end of the film.
And thanks to the streamers, I mean, audiences are being conditioned to not be adverse to subtitled films. There's been a big breakthrough in that over the last 3 or 4 years. Parasite can be thanked for that, amongst some other films. And that helps. That helps the filmmaking community here and other parts of the world to know that they can make it authentic. The language can be spoke authentically, and it can still travel.
And, I think it has broken down the barrier to entry for the experimenting process. You think about, let's say, you take a Saudi movie or an Egyptian movie, and take that and put it in theaters in Europe, for example, the cost of experimenting is high for the viewer. You know, it's a movie theater ticket, they'll pay the ticket, and, you know, they'll look at it and say, do I actually go and watch a movie I know nothing about, or do I spend the same amount of money and get to watch Avatar 2, for example? Whereas on the streaming platforms, it's a one price for all. It allows you to experiment and try. Oh, you know, this has come up. Let's watch it. If we don't like it, we switch it off and watch something else. So I think the streamers can be credited for lowering that barrier to entry for the experimentation by the viewer.
Particularly with documentaries as well.
Exactly.
Interesting.
So, you know, I think this is something we should be taking advantage of. And I think this is something that this region can now look at, that taboo has gone away. People in Europe might see a billboard they like for a new movie release, and they will say, yeah, why not try it?
Well, I'll give you an example. So 2 of my directors directed all Ted Lasso.
Okay.
So it's TV, it's shot in England, got Americans that are in it.
Yeah.
Does anybody know where it is and where it's made? They're not. They're looking at the characters.
Exactly.
Right? One of my other directors this year is James Mangold, has just done Indiana Jones. So you got one of those. That cost $300 million to put on. You get another one, the TV shows, they're going up to $120 million just for a season of television. So, but they're separate businesses altogether now. One's for TV and for streaming, and one's for the theater. And the divide is becoming, the opportunities are immense for both. You just have to pick which way you're going to go.
Exactly.
Right?
You pick for the product.
No, you don't. You don't pick for the product. You pick for the audience.
No, I'm saying that when you choose the product, like you say, this works well as a movie, that's when you make it into a movie. This works well for TV. This will work well for a streamer. And, you know, I think one thing we overlook a lot is sometimes the story lends itself very well to being a multi-part. And because, you know, it has many decision points and it has lots of enticers in it, so it lends itself to being a multi-part. And sometimes the story itself fits within 90 minutes, and that lends itself to a movie very well. So I think it's a balance. And, you know, looking at a script or looking at a story, you should not be saying this has to be a movie. No, you look at it and then say which is best for it.
Yeah, just know that the economics are such that at the end of the day, if you have a successful movie, there will be a TV series based on your movie. If you have a successful TV series, there will be a movie.
That's called the TV, right? That's called the rights. That's whenever you start talking about
it will be exported. There'll be action figures, there'll be a video game.
And you make the sequel to the sequel.
Exactly.
And then you decide to make the prequel.
Guys, got to wrap it up. Thank you very much. Guys, story.
Story.
Thank you.
Thank you.